For the viewers of The Pioneer, how are you doing? I hope you're healthy and well. As the Pioneer team, we're here again with our new map report on the war of the century. We will soon analyze the developments with the map, as we are about to leave behind the year 2023. We are witnessing that very active conflicts continue on the front line. 2024 will be at least as active as the last year. We also understand that this is from the current developments. Moreover, the fact that the Ukrainian armed forces will start using F-16 fighter jets in the near future points to a considerable mobility. In recent days, we see that the Russian offensive positions on the front line continue to dominate. According to some sources, the Russian armed forces have lost about 400 armored vehicles during the 3 months of the counterattack. This is a quite significant number for a conventional army. And almost all of these losses have been recorded on the Donetsk front line, as you can imagine. We will analyze these issues more seriously in a moment. So, what is the latest situation on the front line? Let's take a look at the developments together. As the Pioneer team, we continue to bring the Russia-Ukraine war to your screens. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so as not to miss our daily map reports and reports on the agenda. You can also support me and my team by using the super thanks button below the video. Let's start if you are ready, the Pioneer reports. Let's start today's map report by analyzing the latest developments on the Kherson front line. It seems possible to say that we had an active day compared to the past days in terms of Kherson front line. Let's immediately see the Kherson front line on the map. According to the latest reports on the Kherson front line, the Ukrainian naval infantry continues to dominate the bridgeheads in the Krinky and Data islets. According to the latest reports, the main focus of the defense forces of the Russian armed forces is currently on these 2 points. According to reports, during the day, there was a rather violent offensive on the Russian armed forces troops against Krinky. The fact this was on the strongest attacks by the Russian armed forces against the Ukrainian presence in the region for a long time. Nevertheless, the Ukrainian armed forces managed to hold their positions in the area. Russian troops attempting to attack were forced to retreat. There are also intense clashes in the Delta Islets and Antonivka region. It has been wanted to end the dominance of the Ukrainian armed forces here for a long time. Russian artillery is carrying out frequent but ineffective attacks on these areas. It is not possible to say that the Russian armed forces have achieved any successes in this region. The border line remains largely unchanged. Let us continue with the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest report, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted positions of the Ukrainian armed forces in Sadyovy, Nikolskoye, Taginivka, Antonivka, and Bersilov. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted positions of the Russian armed forces deployed in Oleshki, Poima, Pechanovka, and Podestepnoye. Let us continue our report by analyzing the latest developments in the Robotny sector of the Zaporizhia front line. As you know, the Russian armed forces have been conducting their attacks west of Robotny for some time in this region. According to the latest reports, these attacks continued today. However, this effort of the Russian armed forces was again fruitless. Russian troops were forced to stop attacks in this region. On the other hand, the Ukrainian presence in the Russian first line of defense at Verbov, the deepest point that the Ukrainian armed forces were able to penetrate during the counteroffensives, has been eliminated. Ukrainian troops were quite isolated from other units. Therefore, it seems possible to say that the Ukrainian armed forces left the area with a tactical withdrawal in order to avoid further threats to the defenses. Let us continue with the artillery activity in the area. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted units of the Ukrainian armed forces deployed in the direction of Malaya Shurbianka, Malaya Tokmakcha, Robotny, Novodanilyovka, Orekhiv, and Holyapol. On the other hand, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted units of the Russian armed forces stations in Novoprokopivka, Verbov, Novodoryovka, Echenkov, and Solotka Balka. Let us continue by analyzing the latest developments on the Donetsk front line. According to the latest reports, units of the Russian armed forces on the Donetsk front line launched a series of attacks on the southern and southeastern outskirts of Novomykhailovka following the shelling. However, these attacks were largely unsuccessful. On the other hand, similar actions by the Russian armed forces in the Pobeda area and towards Gorogorivka led to a tactical advance. The Pobeda area allows an attacks on Novomykhailovka from the north. Gorogorivka opens the road to the most important Ukrainian logistics center of Kurakhov, which also feeds the Ukrainian garrison. Here, the offensive strategy of the Russian forces seems to have a more reasonable basis. However, there are also reports that in other parts of the front line, especially order commanders, are aiming to succeed with the old strategies. The Russian armed forces also tried to advance in the Nivolsky area. Permovsky, Severnoye, and Avdiivka were attacked with artillery support. The fortified area in Avdiivka was attacked from the industrial zone on the southeastern outskirts of the city. Counterattacks took place in the northeastern areas near the coke factory. In addition, after the shelling, the Russian armed forces launched an attack on Novobakhmutovka, controlled by the Ukrainian troops. These attacks also failed to produce any results. The front line, the demarcation line, is largely stable. Let's touch on the artillery activity in the area. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted positions of the Ukrainian armed forces in Yekaterinovka, Elizavetnia, Kolokhokov, and Krasnohorovka, Stepnoy, Novokalinkov, and New York. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted Russian troops stations in the villages of Marinka, Staromykhailivka, Donetsk, and Krasnogorovka. We continue with the Bakhmut front line. According to the latest reports on the Bakhmut front line, the Russian armed forces, supported by long-range weapons, launched an offensive near Andriivka, on the hills northwest of Klishchivka and near Bogdanivka. It seems possible to speak of the limited Russian advance in the direction of Bogdanivka. On the other hand, the attacks of the Russian troops in the direction of Vasoloyov were largely unsuccessful. The front line remains stable. Let us conclude our report by artillery activity. According to the latest reports, Russian artillery targeted Ukrainian positions in Ivanivsky, Radolovka, Supernoe, and Verkhenkov-Moskowy, while Ukrainian artillery targeted the Russian armed forces in Bakhmut, Yagodnoe, Krasnopolovka, Yakolovka, and Vermenskovkovka. In your opinion, it is possible for the Russian troops to clear the Ukrainian bridgeheads on the Kherson front line? How do you assess the current situation here? Do you think that the Russian troops have failed on the Donetsk front line? How do you think the situation on the Donetsk front line will take shape? Let me know in the comments. I read and care about all your comments.